Amidst the dense forest, Drasa awakens to the sound of an approaching plane. She swiftly arms herself, and the moment a man steps off, she eliminates him with a single shot. Drasa visits her mother's grave with her father. He reveals that his cancer is beyond treatment and announces his plan. If he's still alive by February 14th, he will take his own life to reunite with his wife on Valentine's Day. Meanwhile, former Marine Levi jolts awake from a haunting nightmare. Seeking solace, he heads to the beach to clear his mind. At dawn, a text arrives, instructing him to report to the Marine Corps base, the head. Upon arrival, Levi is introduced to Agent Bartholomew, who is well aware of his exceptional sniper career and solitary life. She extends him a classified job offer. Meanwhile, in Lithuania, plane, groggy from anesthesia, he questions a nearby soldier, but she's under orders to remain silent. Confiscating his belongings, she informs him they're reaching a no-fly zone. He must jump and complete the journey on foot. Grabbing his gear, Levi leaps, deploying his parachute at the right moment. Upon landing, he embarks on a grueling trek, climbing and camping through rugged terrain. Eventually, he reaches a gorge where he encounters soldier JD, who's been there for a year, yet remains clueless about their location. They proceed to the West Tower, an entirely self-sufficient outpost equipped with solar panels, a backup generator, a rain system, vegetable gardens, and ample wild game. Across the gorge stands the East Tower, but communication between towers is strictly forbidden. Landmines and barriers reinforce the area, making passage impossible. JD briefs Levi on his duties. Walk the Western Rim daily, restocking automatic gun turrets every 600 meters, maintaining the containment fence, mines, and cloaking devices, which distort satellite signals to hide the gorge. A monthly radio check is their only contact, but it's one way. A panic button activates the stray dog protocol, though JD doesn't know what it entails. Only that if triggered, running is the best option. This site dates back to the Cold War, with global military factions vowing secrecy, even from world leaders. Levi's primary task: ensure nothing escapes the gorge. JD once thought it was nonsense until he saw the so-called Hollow Men, whose eerie screeches echo through the valley. In the late 1940s, 3 horseback battalions were deployed to clear the area. None returned. Since then, containment has been the only strategy. JD departs, hiking to the extraction point. As a helicopter lifts him via rope, a soldier asks for his code. Upon verification, JD is shot in the head, his body discarded into the mountains. A month later, Levi adjusts to his monotonous routine: patrolling, maintenance, and terse radio check-ins. One day, while gardening, he spots movement at the East Tower. Using binoculars, he sees Drasa chopping wood. She notices him but disregards his presence. One stormy night, Levi, startled by a nightmare, shatters a glass, instinctively reaching for his gun. Realizing his injury is self-inflicted, he calms down. Drasa, however, observes him from afar before retreating. A month later, on her birthday, Drasa, fed up with solitude, fires a shot to get Levi's attention. Holding up a sign, she asks his name. Levi reminds her communication is forbidden, but she responds defiantly with her name, declaring that birthdays mean rules don't apply. Amused, Levi shares his name and raises a glass for a toast. Drasa then blasts music and invites Levi to dance. He claims to be a terrible dancer, but a skilled sniper, so she playfully shoots his water bottle. Unfazed, Levi returns fire, hitting hers. Drasa ups the stakes, balancing a bottle on her head, but halts when she spots movement in the gorge. Levi looks down to find humanoid figures resembling trees scaling the cliffs. He immediately fires, causing one to trigger a mine, detonating an explosion that wipes out several. As more climb, Levi and Drasa coordinate their attacks, swiftly eliminating them. Just as they believe it's over, a creature reaches Drasa's balcony. She guns it down and kicks it off. More creatures ascend her side, forcing them to fend off another wave. An explosion from a fallen mine sends metal shrapnel into Drasa's shoulder. With the monsters attacking both walls, Levi and Drasa unleash machine gun fire, activating more mines until all threats are neutralized. At dawn, Drasa treats her wounds, calling it her best birthday ever. Levi repairs the damage and replaces the mines, only to spot a drone emerging from the gorge. By December, he decorates a tree with lights, bringing a hint of Christmas spirit to the forest. Drasa and Levi start spending a lot of time together, sharing fun activities like building snowmen with each other's names, playing chess, and drumming on pots. On February 14th, Levi finds Drasa in tears while looking at a family picture. Concerned, he asks why she didn't go on patrol earlier. She admits she's having a tough day and wishes he were there with her. Wanting to cheer her up, Levi gathers materials from the armory and constructs a special contraption. He launches a rocket across the gorge, which sticks to a tree and accidentally starts a fire. Drasa rushes to put it out and notices a rope attached to the rocket. She secures it firmly to the tree and hurries back to her tower, where she sees Levi inviting her to dinner. Levi attempts to slide across the rope but gets stuck midway. Thankfully, he's wearing gloves and manages to pull himself along until he reaches Drasa's tower, where he surprises her with flowers. Drasa teases him about his sweaty smell from all the effort, and Levi agrees to take a shower. While he's washing up, Drasa swaps his uniform for some fresh clothes left by a previous occupant. During dinner, they open up about their experiences as mercenaries and how their job affects them mentally. As the night unfolds, they share a dance that leads to something deeper. The next morning, Levi starts sliding back to his tower. Just then, the Hollow Men attack his wall, triggering a mine explosion that severs the rope. Levi plummets but quickly deploys his parachute. Seeing this, Drasa rushes to her armory, grabs weapons, and takes a parachute of her own. She leaps into the gorge and after a long fall, lands in a river. Her parachute gets snagged on a rock, forcing her to cut herself free. The strong current sweeps her away, and she crashes against a rock, losing her auto-ascender in the process. Meanwhile, Levi is unconscious, hanging from a tree. Suddenly, a branch moves. It's not a branch, but a creature. Just as it gets too close, Levi wakes up and starts shooting while struggling to free himself. He falls, landing on what seems like mud, but the sticky substance begins to move. It's actually the mouth of another creature. Levi gets trapped as the jaws begin to close around him. Hearing the gunfire, Drasa rushes in and opens fire, rescuing him just in time. She carefully removes the goo from his body with a knife, and together they begin making their way toward the wall. Suddenly, they hear screeching. 2 Hollow Men appear, riding eerie tree-like horses. The riders attack with swords, and one leaps onto Drasa, but she swiftly stabs him in the neck and finishes him off with a gunshot. One of the Hollow Men disarms Levi using a whip. Thinking fast, Levi pulls out another gun and takes down both the rider and his horse in one clean shot. Drasa checks her bag and realizes the auto-ascender is gone, lost in the river. With the walls too high to climb, they're stranded. She suggests following the river. It has to lead somewhere. As they move through the forest, Levi examines one of the fallen Hollow Men and notices an old military uniform. These creatures were once the lost horseback battalions from the old stories. The duo presses forward, finding hundreds of skeletons along the way until they reach an abandoned town, its buildings overtaken by mutated plants. Signs of an earthquake scar the ground. Hearing screeching in the distance, they take shelter inside a church filled with skeletons. Levi sniffs the air. Cyanide. These people chose to end things rather than endure whatever happened here. Suddenly, a noise from above. Drasa looks up. A giant spider leaps at her. She shoves it off, only to find another approaching. She stabs it while Levi guns down 2 more. Spiders swarm from all directions. Drasa runs out of bullets, forcing Levi to cover her while she reloads. E-length. They fight their way to the exit, only to have the Hollow Men burst in, creating a new battlefront. Drasa brutally slams a creature's head onto a table before tossing it into the swarm of spiders. Levi grapples with another enemy, but manages to shoot it down. Thinking fast, Drasa fires a grenade at the back wall, creating an escape route. They flee through the forest, still hearing monstrous screeches in the distance. Needing cover, they move closer to the wall and find an old door leading into an overgrown facility. Inside, they discover a military lab overtaken by nature. There are skeletons, a generator, and an old projector. Drasa gets the power running, and Levi finds a recorded message from 1946. A scientist explains that their secret coalition experimented with biochemical missiles during World War II. An earthquake caused a chemical leak, mutating local wildlife. The toxin didn't spread beyond the gorge, keeping the world safe, but at a terrible cost. They find a more recent computer belonging to Dark Lake, a private paramilitary group. The drone they saw earlier was collecting samples. Dark Lake is still experimenting, trying to create super soldiers. The towers and guards are just part of their cover-up. Levi uncovers classified information on the Stray Dog Protocol, a nuclear bomb set to sterilize the area if another leak occurs. As they prepare to leave, Levi turns to Drassa. Despite everything, he tells her it was worth it, because he got to meet her. Before they can exit, a hollow man's whip ensnares Drassa's ankle, dragging her away into the forest. She struggles to cut the whip but loses her knife in the chaos. Rocks and branches batter her as she desperately tries to aim her gun. Levi tracks the hollow man to a facility housing the nuclear bomb. Inside, Drassa is tied up and tortured, the creature twisting a branch embedded in her stomach. Gathering her strength, Drassa kicks her captor and frees herself. She arms herself with a sharp piece of metal and fights back. The hollow man proves relentless, but she manages to decapitate the snake in its chest and set him ablaze. Just as the creature writhes in agony, Levi arrives and delivers the final shot. The two embrace before spotting the site of the original toxin leak, filled with grotesque, still-moving, mutated bodies. As the hollow man yells in pain, who begins chasing her around the room as he attacks her with his sword. Drassa uses bones as a shield and makes a torch from the bonfire, which allows her to burn her enemy. Levi finally arrives and shoots him to death. After the soldiers reunite with a hug, Levi checks the hollow man and notices the name on the uniform, recognizing it as the first guard that worked in his tower. After taking the creature's sword, the duo starts making their way out and finds the place where the initial leak happened. There are mutated creatures everywhere, stuck in the goo created by the toxin. Levi and Drassa begin crossing the bridge, unnerved by the faces breathing in the goo. Drassa accidentally steps on a root, and when she pulls at the sticky substance, the bodies begin falling, trying to capture her. Levi uses the sword to quickly cut all the roots and rescue her. Larger creatures begin to wake up, roaring at them. As Levi clears the path with his sword, a goo whip grabs his ankle and pulls him down. Drassa quickly fires a grenade behind them, causing a massive explosion. The creatures catch fire, and the flames spread through the entire goo structure as the duo reaches the stairs to escape. Afterward, they search the town and find military jeeps in a garage. They do some quick maintenance on an engine and take off in one of the jeeps, driving for hours until they find the broken rope. Levi immediately ties the rope to the jeep, while Drassa fires at the hollow men approaching them. When she runs out of bullets, they switch places. Once the jeep is ready, they begin ascending the wall. At first, everything goes smoothly, but soon they realize the hollow men are climbing after them. They kick one off, and Levi uses his sword to fight the others. Drassa finds an axe in the toolbox and joins the battle. While Levi shoves a creature against the spinning wheels, Drassa swings the axe at another clinging to the windshield. Suddenly, a hollow man leaps at Levi, knocking him off balance. He barely manages to grab onto the jeep at the last second, but is left dangling. Thinking fast, he stabs the jeep's gas tank before climbing back up. Then, he lights a flare and tosses it at the creatures. When it combines with the dripping propane, it ignites a massive explosion that burns all their enemies, but also causes the jeep to explode. Levi crashes into the wall, breaking his leg, and Drassa rushes to help him up. Now closer to the top, they make a desperate choice. They cut the rope, letting the burning jeep plummet onto the remaining hollow men below. After reaching Drassa's tower, they tend to their wounds. They agree to quarantine for 5 days in case of infection and finalize their plan to escape together and destroy the gorge. They share a kiss, and Levi tells Drassa he loves her before using a grappling gun to return to his own tower. The next day, during the mandatory radio check-in, Levi's call is intercepted by Bartholomew, who has learned that the lab's computer was turned on. When Levi denies going into the gorge, she concludes that the other tower's occupant must have been responsible. She gives Levi a chilling order: eliminate the other soldier. Pretending to comply, Levi ends the call. Meanwhile, in a hidden surveillance feed, Bartholomew watches footage from the lab's camera. Now she knows both Levi and Drassa were there. She contacts a commander, ordering a team to prepare for deployment to the gorge. The next morning, as Levi and Drasa set up mines for their plan, Drasa writes, "I love you back," for Levi to see. Their moment is interrupted by the sight of an approaching helicopter. Realizing they've been found, they sprint into the forest. When the soldiers reach the towers and find them empty, they deploy drones to track them down. A high-speed chase ensues as the drones open fire. Levi and Drasa fight back, taking them down one by one, but not without suffering injuries. Reaching higher ground, they take sniper positions and eliminate the cloaked enemies. As planned, the mines create a chain reaction, exposing the gorge to the world. This triggers the activation of the Stray Dog Protocol. Realizing what's about to happen, Bartholomew and her team rush to the helicopter to escape. Meanwhile, Levi and Drasa run for their lives as the nuclear bomb detonates. The explosion engulfs the helicopter, sending it spiraling into the ground, killing everyone inside. The force of the blast hurls Levi off a cliff and into a raging river. Drasa, barely escaping, takes shelter in a cave, waiting for Levi to return. Weeks pass. With no sign of Levi, Drasa finally decides to leave alone. Sometime later in France, she works as a waitress, trying to move on. One day, she's frozen in shock. Levi sits at a table, waiting for her. He smiles, explaining that it took him a long time to recover. They reunite with a kiss. Do not forget to subscribe and like the video, and wait for us for the best movies coming in the way.